also saw a lot of improvement once I started using your course. It didn't seem as difficult. Definitely felt obtainable, and it felt like I was able to do it. To always being there to answer questions and just staying on top of it, because that really helped me stay focused and motivated throughout my studying process. It's okay to have days where you don't feel motivated or want to do anything, but make sure you just get back on that horse and keep going forward, and you can do it.
Hello guys, welcome back to the Jenny interview series where I interview engineer community members who have passed the FE exam. Today we meet Sammy, who graduated in 2018 and took the FE exam 6 times. At some point in his journey, Sammy started to lose hope and motivation because he was not getting the result that he wanted, even though he was putting in more hours of studying. Sammy did have a great support system that helped him to keep going, and when he changed his study habits and study material, he started to see progress and improvement, which gave him a lasting motivation. Now, also, Sammy did struggle with test anxiety, but on his last attempt, he did something different that helped him overcome it. So if you have taken the FE before and failed, then keep watching to learn how Sammy passed his FE exam in only 3 months. Sammy, why did you decide to take the FE exam?
So I started school, civil engineering, and my goal, since I started school, was to always get my professional engineering license. So, the E.I.T exam is one step in that process. So that's why I decided to take the exam.
Okay,
It's always been good.
and when did you graduate?
I graduated in 2018.
Okay. Was it a requirement by your job as well?
When I first graduated, that job did not require it, but I transferred jobs and it was a job requirement for my new job that I started in 2021.
Okay. And how many times did you take the FE?
So I took it 6 total times, including the last time that I passed.
Okay. And so you failed the FE exam 5 times. Was there any point during that journey where you wanted to give up?
Yeah, there's a lot of times. I think after the second to last time, I think it was pretty close, just because I kept getting similar results, even though I put more time in studying. The first couple of times, I don't think I took it as serious. I didn't put as much time in, and I was still in school, so I think I took it twice while I was in school, and the rest of the time I was, a couple years removed from school, so the material wasn't as fresh. It took a long time to get that momentum of studying and remembering the material.
So what kept you going? Like what kept you motivated and not just give up?
I think it was a good support system and around me, my family and friends, and also because it was necessary for my job to have this certificate. So that kept me motivated to keep taking the exam. And I also saw a lot of improvement once I started using your course. It didn't seem as difficult, and I was able to take a lot of practice exams. And seeing the results I was getting on the practice exams showed that I was improving and retaining information, which I felt I didn't have prior to taking your course. It definitely felt obtainable, and it felt like I was able to do it. I felt a lot more motivated that way as well.
Yeah, I think, a lot of times motivation comes from making progress. Like if we're making progress, then that feeds more a lasting motivation. Like you could initially have a motivation, but if you feel like you're always stuck and you're not really getting closer to your goal, you start like easily losing hope and giving up. And I think that's really important when it comes to motivation. And the reason I noticed from your journey, that's what happened. You were feeling confident, you're understanding the problems more, which helped you stay motivated. And the reason, I'm talking about this because I think this is something that a lot of people struggle with, motivation, when it comes to the FE exam, especially because it's like, you graduate college and now you're on your own and you have to figure it out on your own. And so that can be tricky. Um, what do you think you struggled with the most with when it was about like passing the FE exam? What was so difficult about passing the FE?
I feel like it was a lot of material. There's a lot of topics. Some of the topics I hadn't taken classes, 5+ years. Dynamics, mechanics, materials. It's stuff that generally civil engineers do not use. In their everyday work environment. So I felt that when I was taking the exams, those questions were in the first section, the morning section of the exam. So when I would see those problems and I would struggle to do those problems, I feel during the exam I would have a lot of test anxiety, thoughts where it's like, oh no, I can't do this, or here we go again. So I felt that that's where I struggled the most um, during the exams that I had taken. And obviously, the last exam that I took that I did pass, that wasn't the case. I felt like I was better prepared. And even if I didn't know the question, I just flagged it and kept going. And, towards the end of the exam, I had a lot more time to solve those questions. And eventually, I was able to figure them out or give my best guess of what the answer could be.
That's awesome. We'll talk a little bit more about like the actual exam and how was your experience. But I want to go back to test anxiety. That's another thing that's really common with students that are taking the FE exam. Just like you said, it's a lot of subjects and it's a long exam. How did you overcome that? How did you overcome test anxiety?
I feel I did a lot of problems. I did a lot of practice exams to where when I actually took the exam, it just felt like another practice exam that I was taking.
Mm.
So I felt that doing a lot of problems and putting yourself in that testing situation, because we know it's 5 hours and 20 minutes, 110 questions, that's never going to change. That's the way it is now. So putting yourself in that environment and taking practice exams like a real exam helped me overcome that anxiety during the actual exam.
Okay, that makes sense. Do you remember your scores on the practice exam? Do you remember what was your lowest and what was your highest?
Yeah, I think the first time I think like a 45, 46.
Wow.
Um, and then throughout, I think I took like 4 or 5, and it would gradually increase like in the 50s, 56, etc., in the 60s. And the last exam I took was the NCES one, which is obviously the easiest one I would say. And that one I got like an 80%.
Okay.
Um, but I really didn't really put too much emphasis on what the scores I was getting, just that I was actually doing the exam. I didn't really. I think I put more emphasis that I sat down for 5, 6 hours of my Saturday and took the exam. That was like more of an achievement than what the actual score was to me. And throughout the week, I was able to go back and see the problems I did wrong and kind of reinforce those concepts. So yeah, I think that helped a lot.
Okay. I love that. So you weren't so much focused on the score, you were just like focused on the fact that hey, I showed up and I took a test that was 6 hours long and I'm proud for doing that. And you didn't really focus on the score. Which is awesome. And the reason I actually asked you for the score is because a lot of times we have our students when they score low on their practice exam, we get an email and they're freaking out and they're like, oh my God, right? And so that's why I asked. And sometimes I've heard a couple students where they said they scored really low and they still passed the FE exam the next 2 or 3 weeks. And so that's why I asked you that. That's awesome. Okay. Um, so let's talk about study material. So you took the FE exam 5 times, 2 times were in college. So I'm assuming the first two you didn't really get any study material. You were just using your notes from college then because you had everything. Okay. And then after that, what type of study material did you use? Tell us a little bit about what worked, what didn't work for you, and all that.
Right. So yeah, in school I used basically just stuff from class that I was already taking. I only took like the NCES exam those 2 times, so I didn't really take it as seriously as I did after college. So when started taking it after college, I was in a construction field at that time, so there wasn't a lot of engineering that I was doing. And I would basically what I used is books that I got from the past with a lot of material, as well as like YouTube videos. But I felt that those materials that I used they weren't as broken down as your class was, and it was kind of a lot. It was a lot of material.
Mm.
You didn't really know exactly if what you were using was going to help you in the exam. Um, and the stuff you were using was probably a little bit more into the weeds. It wasn't as focused on what the material was. And some of the courses that I took that uh, it was more of like a lecture where you sat down, 5, 6 hours plus on a Saturday, and you were just throwing a bunch of information. And I didn't really find that beneficial. It was just kind of overburdening of material, and you weren't really retaining the information. So the books that I had and those type of courses that I did take, I don't think they helped at all. It was just a lot of information to retain, and you weren't really focused on what you needed to learn.
Got you. Yeah, I can totally see that when I took my FE exam, I was in that situation where I was like on YouTube and just have all these books, and often I found myself like my desk was always messy. It has to because I was using so much material, and it was like I was just scattered everywhere, like you said, and I always had to make sure, oh, is this on the specification? Is this on the reference handbook? Am I wasting time on something that's not going to be on my exam? So I totally get that because it affects your focus too and your learning process. You don't learn as much because you're always anxious and you have so much material. Um, so so you got all that material. It didn't work for you. So how did you pivot? Like, what made you decide to purchase our courses?
Yeah, so I actually have a friend that took your course,
Oh.
uh, and she recommended to take the course. Um, and I think she had failed a couple of times as well. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. I'll buy the morning section and see how it goes. So I bought the morning section, and I think like in the middle of that, I was like, okay, I'm gonna buy the afternoon section as well.
Mm.
Um, I just felt it was very structured, and it helped me stay focused on the subjects and the material that was needed for the exam. So I think kudos to yourself and your staff to always being there to answer questions and just staying on top of it because that really helped me stay focused and motivated throughout my studying process.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm really glad we were able to help you with your FE journey and help you pass your FE as well. What do you think what was the thing that you really liked about our courses?
Really, I think over everything, the videos are great. And I really liked how the videos were. I think the longest video that I think you had in your course was probably 10 minutes. And I think that was great that they weren't too long. They were short and concise and to the point. And I think that was my favorite part about your course. Everything was fast paced, and I can set my schedule around that to know that I can do 10 questions after work every day, and that would be enough for that day for that course. And I can just keep going that way. I think that helped a lot.
Hmm, interesting. Yeah, I think it just psychologically helps because you can see your progress and you're like, oh, I did that video. And you can see it versus like there's this whole, like you said, the 6 hour lecture. I can't even imagine sitting in a long like like you don't, I mean, you don't process anything. And in engineering, I believe it's about doing problems because that's how you really grasp the concepts. You can talk 6 hours, but I'm gonna process like maybe 10% of what
Right,
the
exactly.
professor saying. That's how it was in college. Like it wasn't very efficient. But what helped us in school is that the homework that we did afterwards that helped like grasp those concepts that the professor lectured during class. But yeah, like it's I can see how that would be like very efficient. It wasn't my idea initially. It was my husband's idea. Who's like, hey, let's you can try to break it down. It'll be easier to process, and I'm glad I did that. So great, awesome. Thank you for sharing that with us. Now, you mentioned that you took a lot of practice exams. Do you remember which practice exams you took and which of them you felt that were really relevant to the actual exam?
Yeah, so I took the ones that you recommended. I bought both those books, the Urim exam and I believe It was
Islam?
Islam, correct.
Okay.
Um, the Urim exam I think was the hardest one. That's the
Mm,
one I that's the one I took first. I think I got like a 43%, something like that.
okay.
But I kind of knew that that was gonna be hard. So I was like, I'll just take that one right away, get out the way, and then I took the both the Islam exams, and those were a little bit better. And then the practice exam that was on the course was also fairly good. They, and I think that one I scored, I think, one of the highest. So that was good. And I really like that one because that was well, exactly like the NCES exam. So it was perfect and it was a good indication of to prepare for the exam. It was great. Yes, I took those three, four, and then I took a mock exam that I believe you was on your website as well.
Okay, awesome. All right. That's great. We had the weekly meeting. I don't know if you attended any of our weekly meetings, but we had one today. And one of our students took this practice exam, and it wasn't one of the practice exams you mentioned. And he didn't do well, and he was like freaking out. And then I was like, "Which practice exam you took?" And he told me, and I'm not gonna mention it here. And I was like, "Well, that's why, because that practice exam is not really relevant, up to date." And I shared with him this list because I really believe that, you and so many other students said that this was very close to the actual exam, and the closest you are, the better you're going to feel prepared. So I just wanted to make sure that these are up to date and relevant still to the exam itself. So, okay, awesome. Um, Now let's talk about some study tips. What study tips that you found really helpful?
I think the most important thing is for me was not try to do too much. I noticed that the longer I studied, the less material that I retained.
Mm.
So I would try to I try to do increments. So I would kind of do, I think you mentioned the time blocking. So I would try to do at least like an hour a day. So I worked full time. So during the week, I would do an hour to 2 hours after work. I would do 10 to 15 problems every course. And the weekends, I would do 2 to 3 hours. Um, Again, just increments, do 3, 4 problems at a time, take a 15-minute break and start over again. Same thing. So I think the time blocking helped me out a lot, and not try to do too much a day. I think helped a lot because that can lead to overburden and can't remember the word right now, but just overkill. And you don't want to do that. You don't want to burn yourself out because there's a lot of material. You want to. I always say quality over quantity is definitely a big thing of mine. So it doesn't matter if you do 2, 3 problems a day, as long as you do something and do them well and understand them. That's the most important thing to me.
Awesome. Yeah, I really like that. And a lot of times students have a hard time with that. Like they feel like, studying for just an hour is not enough, but it's like you said, it's about that quality of an hour versus doing so many hours, but you're not really grasping. I'm glad you were able to, just like know your limit and just be like, that's all I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna stop, because then the next day you're more likely to show up again versus if you go more
That's
then
correct.
then
Yep,
you can. Yeah. So that's also a big one. I think a lot of students find themselves in that situation and they burn out, which is really not helpful. Mel, what do you think some of the things that you felt, or either could be study tips or material, or that you did that you felt kept you stuck and not helped you really to progress and pass your FE exam like faster?
uh, I think it just comes down to having the right material and just being focused on material you need to use to study. Like I mentioned before, the books that I've had in the past, they were just way too detailed and way too in the weeds. There was a lot of questions that were just very difficult. 5, 6 step questions, which is not relevant to the FE at all. The questions that you take in the FE are fast questions, 5 minutes tops. if it's too long, don't even bother. Just move on to the next one and come back at the end because it's not going to help you. That piece of numbers game, and you're trying to get as many questions as right as possible you can get. So I think just being focused on questions that are relevant to the FE and fast paced will definitely help you. I mean, you're doing questions that take you 15, 20 minutes. It's not going to help you at all. You want questions that are fast paced, and you want to be able to identify the buzzwords and the keywords to that topic. So it's also very important.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Let's talk now about your schedule and how many times did you or how many months did you study for your last attempt? Do you remember?
Uh, yeah, I believe I studied. I want to say like 3 months. So I believe I finished the morning course in about a month, and the afternoon course I think about a month as well. And then after that, I just did practice exams for the next 4 to 5 weeks, and that's all I did. I didn't really study or go back and do any questions from your course. I just did exams, and I went over the exams, and that's basically what I did.
That's
So yeah,
great.
yeah, I think it was. I have it right here. It was May to November, the first week of November. So yeah, about three to 4 months.
Okay. Did you use one of our study plans that we have on our site?
Yeah, it was. I think it
Okay.
was relatively close
Okay.
because I know I took a couple of weeks off as well in between. So I think I took the morning course and then I took a week off, and then I took the afternoon course and I took another week off, and then I just took the practice exams. So I think it's also beneficial to take weeks off and take a little breather in between wherever you feel necessary.
So when you took the week off and you came back, you just started the next section?
Correct. I started the next section, and like I said, I wasn't too concerned on how many problems I was doing. If I was doing little by little, eventually, 3, 4 problems a day would turn into 10 to 15 problems, right? It ramps up, and once you start doing them, you get a better flow for things.
Yeah, that's true. And also I also think as you learn more and more concepts and more subjects, it helps you with the next subjects and you just keep building onto those some foundation and then you find yourself going faster as well.
Yep, exactly.
Right, yeah. Um, when you took that week off and you came back, did you feel more recharged and more energized to go back to the course, or did you have a hard time to go back to it again?
I felt energized, but I did notice it took me like a day or two to get back into it. So I think like the first day, I probably did like 1 or 2 problems, but I was okay with that. Like I said, I just kept pushing forward, and eventually it was back to my normal, 5, 10 problems a day. And then the weekends are a little bit longer. So I think it took a little bit, but once you start, it's a little bit easier to keep going.
Yeah, yeah. I think the hardest part is always the beginning, right? But once you get that momentum going,
Exactly.
it just goes easier. Awesome. Okay. I have to say, like, it's really cool how you did it in 3 months. That's yeah, that's great. I remember like it took me like 5 months to prepare for my FE exam. So it's great how you were able to do that. And you failed the FE exam like 5 times before that, and then you studied for 3 months and then you went ahead and you passed it. It's incredible. Let's talk a little bit about the week before your exam. So you said the whole month you were just doing practice exams. Was there anything specific the week before that you did, or did you change anything in your routine, or did you just kept practicing?
No, actually, what I did was I made a cheat sheet on the course, when I was following along on the course, and I just reviewed that basically the week leading up to my exam. I'll spend a day or two reviewing it, just picking random problems and just doing them, and using the reference manual. And if I saw anything that was not on my cheat sheet that I used on the problem that I solved, I would just uh, note it down, just to have that. And so I basically used my cheat sheet, and I would study over the cheat sheet and also the reference manual. I think I saw a video um, a couple weeks before I took my exam where a student mentioned they all they did was just go over the reference manual, and that's kind of what I did too. So that helped out a lot.
Yeah. It saves you time during the exam, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely does.
Yeah. That's okay. And before the exam, like how did you feel going into your exam?
I felt pretty confident. I think you guys sent me an email before, which is awesome, and you gave me some tips about how to flag questions, and I think that really made a big difference.
Mhm. So you went ahead and you did the easy ones first and the medium and
Correct.
then, okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Awesome. And how many questions did you have to guess?
Let's see. So the first section, I believe I flagged about 20 questions. Um, and I think I had about like an hour to do those 20 questions, which was a
Oh,
lot of time.
yeah.
Um, and the second section, I think I flagged a little bit more. I think it was close to 30. But the second section, the transpo, geotech, those questions take a lot more time. So I kind of already knew that. So if I saw those questions, like the solid questions or the vertical curves, I just flagged them right away. I didn't even really think twice about it. And I just kept doing the questions that I knew. So that helped a lot,
Yeah.
which I think was a big difference between the test that I did fail. I think I mentioned the anxiety where if I didn't know the question, I would like freak out and kind of spiral. But this time I just flagged it. I didn't really think twice. So if I didn't know the question, if the question was just worded way too long, or if I knew the question but it was going to take a while, I just flagged it and kept going. And I think that's what helped me out a lot.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. I think a lot of students, when they get a difficult question, they just freak out and they go, especially if you failed before, you go like, that's it. Like, and you start spiraling and going like, oh my God, I'm gonna fail again. And it's like, it's just one question, like just, and
Right.
that's why I really try to tell you guys, like, you see a difficult question or even a long one, even if you know it, just flag it and move on. Because at the end, like you said, you looked at it and you were like, I flagged 20 questions, but I still have a whole hour to figure it out. And then also you're confident because you got the rest, like 30 or 35 questions already, and you feel like I got them and you're confident about them. And then so it gives you this motivation to keep going and not really spiral or, start freaking out. So yeah, I think it works out for a lot of students. That I'm glad that you tried it and it worked out for you as well. Now, last question about your exam. Do you remember how much time did you spend in the morning section and then how much in the afternoon section?
Um, I believe the morning section, I think I had about like 30 minutes left when I was done. So I got through it pretty quickly. Um, there wasn't that many conceptual questions, I believe, this time around. There
Oh,
was a lot of problems on the morning section versus the afternoon section was the opposite. There was a lot more conceptual questions. And I believe I had about 30 minutes as well on the afternoon section left when I finished. Um, and yeah, I think it was more conceptual in the afternoon questions for sure. A lot of material questions for geotechnical and
mm.
environmental.
Okay. Yeah, those sections are really heavy. Geotech, transportation, environmental structures as well. You get a lot of questions on those. Sometimes I wish they could just switch the exam just because it's like you want to start with the difficult subjects when you have a good energy versus like by the
Right.
time you get there, you're like, I'm tired. Like, I want, but yeah, they just go through it as I guess in that order. Okay, awesome. And um, how do you feel now that you have your EIT?
Feel great. I want to keep going. I want to get my PE, so that's the next step. Hopefully, I start studying next month, and we'll see how that goes. But yeah, just it's a journey, and you just have to keep going and pushing forward. There's a lot of people that have failed multiple times, including myself. It's always nice to hear stories like that to keep you motivated and keep going. So it's good to have that support system.
Yeah, it really does help. Um, what is the number one advice you would give to other students that are right now going through the same situation as you were? Let's say, you know, someone who graduated around 2018, failed the FE exam a couple times, and they're just lost. What would you say to them? What would you advise them to do?
Just to keep going, don't give up, keep working hard, and eventually it will pay off. It's okay to have days where you don't feel motivated or want to do anything, but make sure you just get back on that horse and keep going forward, and you can do it.
Awesome. Thank you, Sammy. Thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing your story with us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, anytime.
If you guys like this video or any of our other videos, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps our channel out immensely.